All right, today we're diving into a single scientific paper from 1994 that, no joke, completely blew the doors off how we think about computers. Okay, for a second, I want you to forget everything you know about computers. Forget the silicon, forget the microchips, the fans, all of it. Let's just start with a really big question. What if our most powerful computers weren't made of silicon at all, but were made of, well, the very code of life itself? We're talking about DNA. Yeah, the same stuff that's in you and me, writing the instruction manual for every living thing on the planet. And believe it or not, it all started right here. Take a look. It's just a simple little map, right? 7 cities, a few one-way roads. It really doesn't look like much. But this unassuming diagram, it was the key. This was the test that proved for the first time ever that biology could actually compute.
So let's get into it. Why this map? What's so special about it? Well, it's because this little puzzle represents a type of problem that is an absolute nightmare for regular computers.
It's called the Hamiltonian path problem. And the goal sounds simple enough, right? All you have to do is find a route that starts at city 0, ends at city 6, and hits every single city in between exactly once. For a tiny map like this, you and I could probably solve it just by looking at it. The answer is pretty obvious. 0 to 1 to 2. You get the picture, all the way to 6. But, and this is the critical part, what happens when you add more cities? The number of possible routes just explodes. It grows exponentially. A normal computer has to brute force it. It has to check every single possible path one by one. And that very quickly becomes an impossible job. We're talking about a hard problem in the truest sense of the word. Okay, so if our silicon-based computers really struggle with this, what's the alternative? Well, this is where things get really, really cool. This is where our story pivots to the mind-bending idea of a biological computer. Now, this idea wasn't totally out of the blue. It had been floating around for a while. Way back in 1959, the legendary physicist Richard Feynman gave this famous talk called "There's Plenty of Room at the Bottom," where he imagined building tiny machines at the molecular level. But back then, it was pure science fiction, a dream. Fast forward to 1994. A computer scientist named Leonard Adleman is looking at this exact problem, the Hamiltonian path problem, and he has this incredible light bulb moment. He thought, why are we trying to force a regular computer to check every path one at a time? What if we could get molecules to do the work for us? Trillions of them, all checking every possible path at the exact same time. And just like that, molecular computation was born. It's a whole new field, and it's built on this really simple but incredibly powerful idea. Let's use the building blocks of life itself to do our math. Okay, so how did he do it? This is where Adleman's genius really shines. He had to translate that abstract map into a real physical biological system. So he represented each city with a unique short strand of DNA. And then for the roads connecting the cities, say the road from city 2 to city 3, he created a different kind of molecule, a linker, that was specifically designed to grab onto the DNA for city 2 and the DNA for city 3 and stick them together. It's like biological Legos. All right, so he's got his parts list. He's turned his computer science problem into a genetics problem. But how do you press go? How do you actually run the program? Well, let's look at the recipe he cooked up. His molecular algorithm was just a work of art. It's a masterclass in biohacking. First, step 1, he just dumped trillions of his DNA cities and roads into a single test tube. The idea was to let them randomly connect and form every possible path you could imagine, all at once. Pure chaos. But then the genius filtering begins. Step 2, he used a common lab technique, basically a biological copy machine, to multiply only the paths that started at city 0 and ended at city 6. Everything else gets ignored. Step 3, he filtered all those molecules by size, keeping only the DNA strands that were exactly the right length, the length of a path that goes through 7 cities. Too short? Gone. Too long? Gone. And the final, most clever part, step 4, he used these tiny molecular magnets designed to latch onto the DNA of each city. He made sure he only kept the paths that had visited every single city on the map. So, after all that sifting and filtering, you get to step 5. You just have to look and see if any DNA molecules actually survived the whole process. This whole thing took 7 days of really careful, painstaking work in the lab. The theory was solid, the chemistry was all set up. But the huge question was still hanging in the air. Did it actually work? I mean, think about it. Out of the trillions and trillions of random pads that formed in that test tube, could this clever filtering process really find the one single correct answer? It's like finding a specific needle in a haystack the size of the solar system. And here it is. This is the result. This image. This is the final output. That single bright band you see, that's it. That is the DNA that made it through every single filter. It's the physical proof. The molecules did it. They found the answer. They found the one and only Hamiltonian path.
Look, this was way, way bigger than just solving a little map puzzle. This was a proof of concept. This experiment kicked the door wide open to a completely new way of thinking about the future of computation.
What Adleman did here wasn't just some clever parlor trick. No way. This was the first time anyone had ever harnessed the massive parallelism that's just built into biology to solve a genuinely hard human problem.
And when I say massive, I mean massive. In that very first step, just mixing everything in the test tube, Adleman figured his little experiment performed something like 100 trillion operations. That raw computational power happening in a single drop of water was more powerful than the fastest supercomputers on Earth at the time. It's just wild. And the potential here, it's just staggering. Let's talk energy efficiency. DNA computing could be billions of times more efficient than our silicon chips. And data storage? It's not even a contest. You could store about 1 trillion times more information in DNA than on our best hard drives. 1 trillion! The density is just off the charts. And Adleman knew it right away. In his paper, he basically said, hey, for these big, messy parallel problems, it's totally conceivable that molecular computers could go head-to-head with electronic ones, and maybe even soon. And boom, that one experiment launched an entire scientific field. Now look, we're not running our laptops on DNA yet. But what it proved is that computation isn't just about silicon and electricity. It's something much more fundamental. Which leaves us with a really fascinating question to chew on. What if the next great leap in computing power isn't built in a factory, but grown in a lab? Is the future of computing biological?